Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the DeKalb Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for this October 16th, 2023. Could we start with a roll call, please?
Becker.
Here.
O'Flaherty. Pena Graham. Here. Stoker. Here. Wright. McMahon.
Here.
Maxwell.
Here.
5 present.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the approval of the agenda. If there are any additions or deletions, if not, I will ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Becker. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Stoker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We'll move to the approval of the amendments from October 2nd, 2023. Again, if there are any additions or corrections. If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I move that we accept the meeting minutes from October 2nd as presented.
So moved by McMahon. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Becker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. This is the public participation portion of our meeting. If there's anyone that would like to speak to something that is not on the agenda, you may step forward. If not, we will move on to new business. We have a public hearing, a petition by Robert Wessels, represented by Thomas Doherty, for approval of the rezoning upon annexation of the property located at 2023 Sycamore Road from the SFR1 Single Family Residential District to the PDC Planned Development Community Commercial District to accommodate a farmer's market and accessory uses. Do you have a presentation?
Pardon me?
Would you like to step forward? And
I'm sorry, I thought there might be another guest here that wanted to sign a form and speak.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'd be glad to step forward.
Okay.
I think Mrs. Foss said that Louisa McCarthy was going to come and want to speak, so I was just kind of looking to see if she was coming or not.
Yeah, we'll go ahead with
I'll go
your
ahead.
presentation that staffs and will be open to the public.
Sure, okay, thank you. That's why I was slow here to
Not a
respond.
problem. We're in no rush.
I'm Tom Doherty. I represent the Wessels. The Wessels have this petition to annex subsequent to annexation, which we're going to do hopefully on the 23rd. Remember when you had speech class in high school, they said, tell them what you're going to say it, and then tell them what you said. So real quickly, I'm going to go over an outline of what I'm going to talk about here tonight, okay? I'm going to talk about the purpose of why we're here. You all know the purpose why we're here. That'll go quickly. I'm going to talk about the history of this property. I'm going to talk about the neighbors have some issues here with the property. We'll go over their concerns. I'm going to talk about some neighbors that have given support to us just recently. Okay? And then in closing, I will ask for the approval. Okay? So for starters,
For the record, can I note that Wright and O'Flaherty?
We went to the wrong place.
okay.
Please, I'm sorry.
Just glad that she's probably just left the hardware store. Okay, we're here to change the zoning. When we annex to the city, it's going to be single-family residential zoning, and we want to change it to PDC commercial. That's our goal. So we're here tonight on our petition to do so. I want to talk about the history of this property. It's pretty significant. This property is county zoned. It's an isolated section in the middle of DeKalb in a commercial district. You know where it is. It's at the corner of Sycamore Road and the side street there, right across from the First National Bank of Omaha, who, by the way, is in support of our petition. So that's Greenwood Acres and Sycamore Road. That's where we're located. You can see our building right there. The bank is in the upper right corner. And then the street is owned by the city up to a point where it curves. You can see that black line up there. And then it goes into the county zoning. There are all right. In about 1960, the Salemi family opened up what was called the Oaks Restaurant. It sat right on the corner there. And as I can recall, I'm old enough to remember when it was the Oaks Restaurant. The access, as I recall, was off of Sycamore Road. I'm not sure about that, but in any event, it was commercial use from around 1960. Okay. Okay, in about 1969, the Pierce family, Wayne and Eleanor Pierce bought the property, and they built and developed, added on a few times. It was the Harley Davidson motorcycle repairs, sales, and service facility. I bought my bike there in 1998. All right, my wife made me sell it last year. She found the time to come. I think she was right. All right, in 2011, the property was sold by the Pierce family to Ron Breeze, and Ron owned it until recently, and then 2022, the Wessels family bought it. What's important here as far as its history goes is the Wessels family operated their produce stand for 22 years at this location. All right, now we have the petition, which we're asking you to approve tonight. Keep in mind, this property, shows a picture of it right up here, has been used commercially for 60 years. It has not been residentially used. The properties behind it have been residentially used, and they are beautiful properties. They have a great view of the golf course out their back door. So I'm envious. I'm envious. They have a great neighborhood. Frankly, I'd like to think that when the folks along this, there's 20, I count 25 lots that are along that route there, including the big lot off to the right, which is owned by the Bemis family, who, by the way, called me today with her support, Mrs. Bemis. Most of those lots, virtually all those lots on the left side that are facing the west, have a view of the 6-hole on the country club. Just a beautiful view out the back. All right. Now, with regard to the neighbors, Ms. Foss is here tonight. She's one of the neighbors. She lives, the Carpenters own a house right behind the, that first house right behind the Wessels property. I talked to Mike Carpenter, who represents the family pretty much, and he didn't suggest any objections to this. However, McCarthy, Foss, and Brower sent a letter to the city indicating some concerns. Okay? One of the concerns was, what are the future plans of the Wessels? Right now, they want to run a produce stand. They don't have any future plans. However, their petition wants 2,700 square feet use of the existing property. The city, to my knowledge, has no objection to that use of that property, subject to making some improvements and some changes, and the Wessels have already hired a contractor to help them make those changes. Is Louisa going to come? Is she going to speak?
She is, she got hung up in traffic.
Okay,
Maybe
all right.
she's-
Well, some of the issues, some of that complicates the matter a little bit. Some of the issues in their plan development concerns here will be this: will use be restricted to a food stand? Well, not necessarily. There are other uses that could be used by the Wessels down the road, subject to city approval, of course. Will the current business owner be required to ask permission to change his business model? He'd have to comply with zoning rules and regulations. Can they have a coffee shop, a woodworking shop? We'd have to see what the zoning is for those particular uses before we can approach that issue. The next thing on the list here is parking. When I saw the concern about parking that says they use the word haphazard and backing out onto a public roadway, I get that. 2 days ago, I took a ride downtown DeKalb because I was concerned about this. I got to thinking, every time I drive along and I see backup lights going on that they might pull out behind me, I slow down. I want to see, did those people see me? Are they going to stop backing out, or am I going to let them out, or should I go around them? Those are legitimate concerns. Those are legitimate concerns about a parking problem, so I get it. But when I was in downtown DeKalb, I went by the Egyptian Theater. There is parking on both sides of the road that backs out into the street. I drove down South 2nd Street, right by the City Hall. There's parking that backs out into both sides of the street, go down 3rd Street. Those kind of places all around town. I'm not saying they're an ideal use, but they do require a certain amount of caution when we deal with those. The porta potty. Buses don't want a porta potty either. That particular property does not have sewer and water at this point. It had it when Pierce's had it, but the septic system is no longer functional. The water is in the street, down the middle of the street on Greenwood Acres Drive. Wessel's plan to get the water from that street into the building. They want to have a bathroom and they want to hook up to sewer. If they can't get hooked up to sewer, sewer is behind the bank. It's a long ways away and it's 15 feet underground. That's a hassle. I think we may be able to put together a septic system that would be acceptable to the city. Okay, so enough about the porta potty. The city has suggested, recommended, and probably demand that the Wessels screen the porta potty so it's not visible from Greenwood Acres Drive. Okay, we'll work with Dan on that. But again, we don't want a porta potty either. So as soon as they get water in there, as soon as they get sewer, septic system, no more porta potty. We'll get rid of it. Connection to a residential neighborhood. The question here by these folks that wrote the letter is, will the Wessels be required to follow the current UDO, Unified Development Ordinance, regarding site coverage, etc.? Yes, of course they would. And I suspect maybe when Louisa wants to talk to them, you might have some questions for the city or whatever. But so that's my thoughts on, that's my response to the letter that we got from the neighbors. I might mention that there's 25 lots there. We had some questions or concerns by 3 of the neighbors. We have votes in favor from the Bemis family. We have votes in favor from the Country Club. We have a letter from the Country Club. We have a letter from Tim Struthers, who's the Senior Vice President of First National Bank of Omaha. And we have a letter from the owner of the property immediately across the street from the development. All right. Improvements. The Wessels have spent tens of thousands of dollars improving this property, including a brand new metal roof. You can see it in the picture. Brand new siding, which is painted a barn red type siding to kind of go along with their farming background. By the way, Wessel's Farm in southern DeKalb County, they have a grain farm down there. So the neighbors to the property, I was at their place one day when the Country Club people came over and they were shaking their hand and thank you for doing this. It's very attractive from the other side. So the club was happy. The bank on the other side of the Greenwood Acres is happy as well. They're happy to see it. So what's going to happen now after this, assuming it gets approved, what's going to happen? The city will require paving. This parking lot, which is now gravel in parts, asphalt in parts, will end up being paved a minimum of 8 parking places. It'll be striped in accordance with the regulations, 9 feet wide, 19 feet long. That will be a significant improvement. The Wessels have also installed and rehabbed windows and doors in this facility. If you were to go up there and walk around now, you'll see modern versions of the windows and doors. I'm not saying that the Pierce family didn't take good care of the building, but I'm sure that when neighbors moved into their property, they were pleased perhaps that there wasn't the noise from motorcycles and that sort of traffic going in and out of there. I know if I were to buy in that neighborhood, I'd certainly be concerned about that. Okay. I want to hear any questions that any of you might have, but in closing, we certainly ask for your approval to, when we're annexed, to change the zoning from single family to planned development, commercial.
Thanks. When I close the public hearing, and we'll direct questions to you then.
Okay, good.
Is there anyone else that you can speak?
Go ahead,
I'll-
I'm so sorry.
Go through staff and then we'll open it to.
Okay. Okay, that part of the presentation, I think. Got it. Okay.
So you have a staff report in your packet. Tom went through very thoroughly the history of the site. Again, the request is to annex in zone plan development commercial. It's been a commercial building since the 1950s. Tom went through the history. It's actually zoned residential conservation district through the county. Kind of the reason why this came up, the work was done through the county that required a permit, but that didn't occur, so the legal non-conforming status kind of went away for the property. So the county's pushed for them to annex into the city. They're contiguous to, next to the country club and the bank. You can see here the unincorporated part surrounded by the city, so they're down at the Sycamore Road and Greenwood Acres Drive, so it makes sense to annex the property. It's kind of a phased, the way we approached it, it's kind of a phased project where we're going to require some improvements before they get occupancy. They want immediate occupancy in a small area up front so they can have business transactions inside the building, an 8 by 10 area, which will be in the annexation development agreement. So the area they want to occupy is about 40% of the building, about 2,700 square feet shown here in the survey. Is the marked area 36 by 75. They'd like to occupy with currently basically what they're doing in the accessory uses. They do want to immediately occupy upon annexation 8 by 10 area up front, just so they can have some coverage inside in the colder months here. That's in front of the store, inside of this garage door you see there. Those have an 8 by 10 area inside that. Everything else will be outside until they get the work done. They have some certain requirements for heating, electrical work, other work inside. They have been requested, our building department, Don Harper, our chief building official, is here, has done a couple walkthroughs with the owner and come to agreement with what improvements should be done prior to occupying the 2,700 square feet. As mentioned, there's no sanitary or water at the location. It is in proximity. There's sewer and water. There's water along Greenwood Acres Drive, shown in blue there, line. Sanitary is north of the bank, so it is in proximity. So the recommendation is to allow to occupy the 2,700 square feet, meeting the building code conditions. And then if they want to expand beyond that or change uses, do food service, that's going to kick in county health department requirements and a preliminary development plan review by us, and perhaps a water connection or sewer connection or both. So for what they want to do in the 2,700 square feet, they can do that. So anything beyond that would kick in an amendment and probably another hearing in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We want to go further beyond that. A few other things we're recommending. One is 6-foot high fence is required in our ordinance between commercial and residential. So within a year of approval of the ordinance, we want a 6-foot high privacy fence between the site and 105 North Greenwood Acres Drive, the lot to the north, to screen that appropriately. And also parking, as was mentioned. So people kind of pull off. You can see where the driveway there is in gravel, but up front there's actually, you can see where the people park, kind of a gravel paved area. So what we're recommending is within a year, no parking within 65 feet of the right-of-way line to Sycamore Road. That's the front of the building. So no parking in front of there except for one handicap space. And they're required to pave and stripe appropriately per their UDO, 8 spaces behind that. So there'll be no cars parking between the building and the front and Sycamore Road. see cars there, you see on the side would be kind of where the parking would start, and then it'd be 8 spaces striped and paved per our UDO requirements within 1 year. So this will make it a little safer to get in and out of there. We don't want cars backing in and out close to the intersection. This has been reviewed by our city engineer. That'd be appropriate for the first phase of the development. If there's additional uses or expanded square footage, there may be the need for additional parking. But this is a use that it's not overly intense commercial uses. People come in fairly quick, in and out. Small parking demand, quick turnover customers typically. There's not people parking there for half hour, an hour, or anything. So we're comfortable with that recommendation to be done within a year. And as I mentioned, preliminary and final development plan, if they expand beyond that 2,700 square feet, because that will kick in probably requiring for other utilities and other building code requirements. So in the report, you have the standards for a rezoning, the findings of fact, it meets our comp plan, which calls for commercial on the site. Plan development commercial offers the flexibility for the Mr. Wessels and the city to do the appropriate development and improvements that are needed. He's done improvements to the building, as you can see, with the siding and the windows, make it look better. It's been commercial since the 1950s. And we do have some public input. We got a letter which was mentioned, signed by 3 residents who live South Greenwood Acres Drive. Their names are there. Louisa McCarthy, 109 Green Acres Drive. Flora Floss, 111 Greenwood Acres. And Gerald and Cheryl Brower, 113 Greenwood Acres. We also received, since the agenda was posted on Thursday, we received 3 letters of support from the Kishwaukee Country Club Board of Directors, which you have a copy of. Also, a letter of support from the property owner, Nicholas Kronauer, who represents a trust who owns a property right across Sycamore Road at 2020 Sycamore Road. That's the CJ's Gaming and the former car detail place, in support. And we also received a letter of support from the bank across the street, First National Bank of Omaha. All those letters are in front of you this evening. So the staff would recommend approval. There's a sample motion prepared. Approves the concept plan, which is Exhibit A, shows the 2,700 square feet. And also the development standards. So the permitted uses will be outdoor, indoor sale of agricultural products, including produce, plants, Christmas trees, and other accessory products. Light commercial standards for any improvements are done. A few exceptions, a planned development under 2 acres. The screening requirement to the north. 6-foot high privacy fences in there, and the parking requirements within a year. Again, setback 65 feet, 8 spaces paved and striped appropriately per the code, and the portable toilet to be screened and located in a location approved by staff and the Mr. Wessels. And then preliminary and final development plan approval for any expansion beyond that square footage. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. And we have Zach Gill, of course, city engineer, Don Harper, chief building official, too, for any questions.
Thank you, Dan. We have one speaker request form from Steve Irving. If you'd like to step forward, state your name and address, please.
Hello, Steve Irving, lifelong resident. I live at 4 Arrowhead Lane, which is about 2 blocks past the Wessel property. I also have my office and several other buildings that I own across the street from this property. And I've got to tell you, this property looked like hell prior to the Wessels buying it. The roof was sagging, there were no windows, it was just a disaster. And personally, and I know from the country club standpoint, we are really pleased with what they've done to this point. And it's a really cool place. It gives you a country feel. You know, they sell pumpkins, they sell Christmas trees, they'll sell all sorts of cool things like that. And it's got a terrific business going, and I think it's a real asset to the area. If you could, whoever's running the screen here, if you could go just to the larger site plan showing the whole parcel.
Do you want the whole neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Further?
Yes. That's good, perfect.
This shows the area unincorporated with the shaded, I guess, yellow. Around it is the city limits and everything in between. This is kind of a map used for water connections, but it shows the whole area that's unincorporated.
Well, I'd like to point out, personally, I'm very positive with what they've done, and I'd like to see this continue to be improved and have their plan approved. It certainly isn't residential by any means, and it never has been. But I've got a bigger issue with the neighborhood. And I'd like to point out that this whole parcel is in the county. It's completely surrounded by the city of DeKalb. I was involved in annexing the country club property that adjoins all this property here. This is all, from right here forward, is a continuation of Greenwood Acres Drive. And all that property is the city. The bank, of course, is the city. And my concern is that Mr. Wessel's been given hell by the county because he's improved that property. And there's 3 properties in this street right here. One adjoins her house, and there's 2 others at 121 or 119 and 123 that are privately owned. One is rented. The other is a couple that bought it a couple years ago, and they're junkyards. There is more crap in their yards. It's absolutely embarrassing to drive down that street. I can't imagine Bemis, who lives in $1 million home, he pulls out, and there's a house. The people have engines laying on the ground. They've got a boat, they have a trailer, they have beat-up trucks. And my point is that neighbors, not only on Greenwood Acres Drive, but down the street, have complained to the city. The city can't do anything because it's in the county. You go to the county, they won't do anything to get those people to clean their property up. And so we as residents that live in that area, we're stuck with junkyards down the street.
With all due respect, I appreciate that, and I'm sure there are probably channels to go through for that, but the purview of this...
No, I understand that. My only point is I hope you approve his plan because he's improving the neighborhood, but there's a bigger issue in that street, and that is the other property that won't conform to city standards or even come close. And I think the city council and the planning commission need to annex that rest of this property and bring it into the city, whether the property owners want it or not. They're completely surrounded by the city, and they have every right, the city does, to annex all those properties.
Thanks for your input. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
You have to,
I have an information.
okay. You want to just step forward and state your name and address?
My name is Louisa Walt McCarthy. I live at 109 Greenwood Acres. So I'm pretty close, as you've seen on there. This is Flora. Other neighbor wrote the letter, was not well enough to travel here. I am a neighbor, and I'm also a business owner in DeKalb. I'm not saying it's awful, and I frequent the place. I think they're very nice people, and there have been made improvements. I just think that we should be having the same standards we do for the rest of the businesses in town. I couldn't have a business that doesn't have running water. I don't think anybody in this room would want a porta potty as your neighbor 2 doors down, not hidden at all. I can see from your notes that the water is available, and so is sewer. Why would we have to wait? If we're gonna do some other electrical or other improvements, why are we waiting for running water? I'm confused about that. Also, do we have to wait 1 year for the buffer? I think that the notes say that there's also supposed to be some foliage, including the screening, and it has to be 50 feet. Is all that gonna happen? And if we do wait a year, that's gonna be all the other seasons. So there's vegetables in the summer, then there's pumpkins and mums in the fall, and there's Christmas. This isn't like once in a while there's a farm stand. It's just constant. And you did mention that it's a store. That's how this whole thing started, was that it did become something different than it used to be. It was a farm stand. Now it's a store. Now there's a lemonade shake-up situation in front. It looks like a carnival area where you can buy snacks. That is different than it used to be. The parking, even when you showed the picture, all the parking now is gonna be where you say it's not allowed. So how are we making sure the parking is in a different location? And yeah, you do reverse if you go to City Hall right now, but it's several lanes. This is like kind of almost like a half a lane, because the bank already has their own lane, then there's a lane, there's no sidewalks for pedestrians, and now cars are gonna be coming out. That's, I think, our biggest concern is the safety. When you're leaving our neighborhood, it's different. And no, you don't sit there for half an hour. It's almost worse that it's an in and out traffic, because it's more in and out. And it's sometimes going diagonal this way, and it's sometimes going diagonal that way. I'm not saying even no to any of the things, but I think it should be thought through. Many, many people live in that neighborhood, and that's how we get into town. That's how you leave to go to work, how you leave to go to the store, take your kids to school. Every single thing you do, that's how you get out. And it's already kind of a funky corner. We love the bank, and it's, as you can see, apples to apples now. It's totally different. It's what the things, we happen to own the property that the bank bought to make the bank, and they had to do a lot of improvements to fit into the neighborhood, and that is not the same situation. It should be apples to apples, in my opinion. Anything else that we didn't think of? Oh, accessories. Is that just like a term, and I just might not know? Does he have to tell you what the accessories are? Could they change in 6 months?
It's accessory, meaning it's related to the primary uses. It's got to be related to that.
So it couldn't be a random store in one of the other parts? And is the 2,700 feet just because that's where the floor ends? Like, how did we figure out how much is gonna be used and
He
not
has
used?
walls built in there, there's different sections already part of the structure. And so where the main area was that they'd like to use is the bulk of it. And then there's a small area where another separating wall is, and that's where the use will stop currently. And the balance would be like a cold storage area. So it's based on the structure itself and what's there now.
So could it become storage for hire in the other part?
You mean to rent it out?
I would be hard pressed to believe anybody's going to
That would not be an
rent
accessory.
storage out of that be a parcel of property based on the value of it.
We
That's
have to
just my
approve
opinion.
these.
Yeah, anything
Yeah.
beyond 2,700 square feet, they have to come back to us.
And is there, I also couldn't find in the UDO, like you're saying some things you have to do because he's using 2,700 feet, but like not running water, was that like a number?
It's not a number, it's what's
No,
the uses
it's
within
concession.
explain what kicks in water connection or.
Well, anything, I think, in the city is supposed to be connected to the water, but it's an opportunity to give them the chance to get that work done. It's not something to do right now, and the city's giving them an opportunity to then, I suppose, collect the funds to do that connection to the water.
It's a kind of a phased approach the way we took it. We have an old commercial building here. It's not like the bank, it's a little different. It's a brand-new bank where they can plan everything, connect the water and sewer, and do the landscaping. We have a commercial building here since 1950s.
See, that's where, like,
Linked to
it's
parking.
a little bit of a circle talk to say, well, it's always been there, but then we're also saying, but we want to give it a chance to start and to phase it
What we
in.
want them
Well,
doing
it's
is
always
putting in
been-
a phasing, so they, within a year, they gotta do certain things. They got a limit on the square footage they can do, so they can build a business, get more money if they wanna do different uses, then they can connect to water and sewer, become more compliant. They're never fully gonna be compliant with the city regulations. It's a small lot, building takes up quite a bit of the property, so they're not gonna comply with every single provision like if they were a new building. If a new building came in, they'd probably get a host of waivers or variances too, with setbacks and that. There's only a certain place to park on there without backing out in the street. I mean, they'd have to take part of the building down, et cetera. So our approach was kind of phasing in improvements here, safety provision within a year, get the parking safer, paved, and then future they can connect the water and sewer. That was our approach. And they've done work to the building, as you can see, to make it look better.
Yeah, the improvements for aesthetics have been excellent, but no improvements for any of the requirements for the city.
Well, requiring a fence,
Yeah,
there is,
they're not, yeah, they don't belong to the city yet.
yeah.
This is,
No, right, but it still looks like it's gonna be different than what the UDO, like you're saying, you're making exceptions.
But there are a lot of.
Yeah, we do that quite often. We have planned developments, even the larger projects, you see down in 88 have one or two variants maybe or waivers, this can't quite meet. all
Are there
the
any
requirements.
businesses that don't have running water? I was trying to think.
We do require basically, unless through an annexation agreement, public water and sewer for anything really in the city, so. But this is a use that, doesn't require it right now. We're looking to annex them in, and eventually they'll be able to hook up to water and sewer based on the uses they're doing, so.
Is there a timeline on it?
It depends what uses they do. They got the year to do the fence and the parking, and then if they want to expand beyond 20, they're going to be limited to certain uses. If they have food service or anything, that's going to kick in water and sewer service. They're going to have that.
So are we done with the lemonade stand and the food service?
Well, there's not really food service, I would call it. Do you want to respond to any?
Don, I want to respond?
Do you want to respond?
Well, I'd asked the Russells, they'd had a lemonade stand, I don't know if that.
The lemonade stand is someone that went and got a permit from the county, went through the,
Through the health department.
health department, got a certificate so they could, they've got the certificate to go any place where they've got permission to go. And so they asked us for permission, and we allowed them to use our, where you saw where they were. And it's been, from what we've seen, it's been great. People have loved, getting their lemonade, and it's been a
It
good.
just seems it's not a good mix for where you can't wash your hands. That's why I'm confused.
Well, that's
about.
that's a health department situation, and so they have to have a commissary. It's like a food truck, I call that a food truck. So the health department regulates that, and that device, those people, they have to have a commissary that they go to clean all their stuff up, just like a food truck.
Oh, yeah,
would.
just even if like when my
Yeah.
kids were Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, but it isn't. So if it was annexed, then it is through the city then, or there'd still be county?
It's still the county health department, regardless if it's in the city or not.
For food trucks.
The only thing different, if we get it next to the city, is then they will have to pay tax to the city, where with the county, I'm not sure what they do with it. But, so it will cost them a little more money to do that.
Okay.
Okay, and my final thing is that, just, Mr. Doherty said that 3 of us came. We were the 3 that were invited. I think there was 4 invited. And the letters of approval were from businesses, not from residents. So I am here just to say we are trying to combine it. Residential to commercial is a big jump. So I just want to make sure that we're going to have some kind of continuity. And we are the neighbors that live by there. And it is also a long-standing neighborhood. When we say how long it's been commercial, it's really been residential, hoping that someone's keeping an eye on it. We just don't want it to be a slippery slope like next week it's, a furniture store that's open late at night with music and neon signs. Like, we just want to know what's happening that close to our homes. And a porta potty, I think since we're talking about lots of compromises, I think we could find a way to not have a porta potty 2 doors down from our house in the front. And I wouldn't think you would want Sycamore Road to look like that either when we're trying to look sophisticated. And it's the beginning of Sycamore Road that's beautiful. It's just, there could be other places for it.
And I think that was addressed, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll work with them to get it screened and located properly, so it's not so visible.
Okay, thank you. If there is no one else, then I will close the public hearing and open up to comments and questions from the commission.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a couple comments. I think, firstly, it's been a de facto commercial property for 60, 70 years now. I drive that road 3 or 4 times a week. I've been in the stand several times. There have been market improvements in the last 2 years. You see them, and you can see them visibly. When you spoke of continuity, and I agree with you. I mean, continuity, but I think there is continuity. It's been there forever, since probably many of us were kids or even, weren't born, not in its current state, but for the past 20 some odd years, it's been doing this. And we're seeing improvements. And if it is successfully annexed by the city is requiring improvements that over time will make it even better. It's not like FNBO, which is a probably hundreds of millions of dollars in assets. It's a small family business. And a community certainly appreciates the large commercial businesses, but a community lives and dies in the cooperation between homeowners and small businesses. And I personally think this is a perfect opportunity to take what was starting to look a little bit like an eyesore, to see the improvements that have come on it, and to promote the enhancement of that business over years to come.
Could not have said that better. I agree wholeheartedly. Again, growing up here as a kid, I remember when it was a Harley-Davidson dealer. It has been, for all practical purposes, a farm stand for the last 20-some-odd years. So I don't see necessarily any issues with actually just annexing it into the city.
And also, just, to hopefully give you a little peace of mind. So I've been on the commission for close to 4 years now, and we've seen several of these things change. And one of the things that I enjoyed being a part of the commission, because I tend to resist things like this in the past, is that I think the city is very responsible when these sort of things happen, that they don't, to your point, just turn into a nightclub and thumping music at 2 a.m. I think there's a conscientious effort that's being made by the city and by this commission to make sure that when we do have residential or commercial bumping up, that in our job is to make sure that land is operating at best use. That could never be residential. The best use for that property is commercial. And I think we have property owners in commercial businesses, you're a business owner, who are willing to make the investment according to their capability and over time, and they've already made tens of thousands of dollars, it looks like. That I think that is the highest and best use for that property. So yeah, but if it turned out that there were violations on that, I have seen this commission, say no, that's not highest and best use. So hopefully that gives you some peace of mind. Anyway.
Only concerns I have is timeframe for water and sewage hookup. Really because of where it is, annexing it makes sense because of it's in the middle of town. But I would like to see a timeline for water and sewer hookup.
Do you have any concept of when you would like to see that done, when you hope to have that done?
We would like to do it as soon as we can. It's going to cost a ton of money, okay? And we're looking at it, we have to spend a lot of money on blacktop at this point. We need to spend a lot of money on improvements on the inside. So I guess right now, that's kind of our limitation. We want to do it soon, but I can't quantify soon. I wish I could. We're able to run very well what we do without water, and we will have to deal with the outhouse, and I understand that, and we're going to deal with that. As a matter of fact, we sell a lot of mums this time of year. When we sell mums, we bring water from the farm, from our well, to water the mums. And I would suggest to you that even if we have city water, we will continue to bring well water up for the mums, because they're not going to want city water. So at this point, the only advantage to us having water would be so that we could have a restroom. Beyond that, now, 5 years from now, we decide, well, it'd be really nice to have, a coffee bar or whatever that might look like, well then, absolutely, but as far as to give you a definite timeline, I don't know what that's going to look like.
So that
Yeah.
brings up another question that I have about the water and sewer hookup. Is, okay, so let's say that at some point in the future, they choose to sell this parcel. Let's say it's not finished anymore, other than the cosmetic stuff. Very real structural stuff, but cosmetic, finishing, things like that. When they would go to sell it to the next owner, would they be required to hook up to city water and sewer upon the sale, like somebody else
It
purchasing that
depends what
parcel?
they're doing, but the zoning and the annexation agreement standards go with the property, so they don't go away with a different new owner, but depends what the new owner would want to do. If they're just going to do the same thing, then regulations
That
we
would
have would
be-
apply. If
okay.
they want to do something else that requires water and sewer hookup, then they'd
Okay,
have to connect.
Yeah, I don't know what could exist there outside of the farm stand without running water and or sewer, so.
yeah, I guess to me, it's water and sewer, being a pretty common thing to do. Also, where it is in town. If it was on, barely city limits on any edge on the country, it might be less of a thing. I don't know, it's something that I just want to make sure that going forward, that this isn't going to be something that would continually come up, or as ownership changes or other things, that there would be some kind of,
And I would say, Trixie, the reason that isn't water and sewer there is because that's all county.
yeah, no,
right?
it's
hasn't
this
been
weird little
forced
bubble.
into
Yeah.
that area.
Yeah,
Whereas if that was city, that would have had water and sewer a long time ago.
yeah, 60 years
But it's
ago.
just because of that pocket there
Yeah.
of county
Okay.
that it hasn't been pushed in.
I'm not sure if I'm not supposed to talk anymore, but I do have city water, so you just have to pay for it.
Yeah, there's a handful that have.
Yeah, so
water.
some of it is just an expense, so it's, you kind
You
of.
don't have
Yeah, I
septic?
don't mind at all, but if you
Yeah.
just step forward and you, okay.
It's just, I don't want things to be said that aren't true.
And I don't know if any of those homes out there are connected to Kishwaukee Reclamation. I think that they all might have their own septic
The
systems.
septic's cool. Yeah, whatever you gotta make work,
And actually, the property is in the Kishwaukee Water Reclamation District currently, right now. They're annexing, paying taxes to them right now, so.
All of those?
Just this property, I'm
Just
not
that
sure about
one.
all the others, but.
That was really my biggest concern.
Valid point.
You can, you have the option if you want to recommend a certain time frame to have that in, and if they don't, a certain number of years, or if they don't meet that, they have to come back, amend the ordinance, but that's feedback from the petitioner, but that's an option.
So if the use changes, they've gotta come back no matter what. Change of ownership, if the ownership changes and the use changes, they gotta come back. Okay.
It's something different than what's approved, yeah.
Well, and again, to my point, if it's commercial viable for anything other than a farm stand, somebody's gonna have to
Yeah,
run it
they're
at some
gonna
point
Yeah.
anyway.
anyway.
Can I,
Yeah, you get her name and address.
yeah, if you could just,
Flora Foss, 111 Greenwood Acres Drive. There's one thing that's still just really bothering me. So people are there all day working, and they have to use the porta potty. How do they wash their hands?
Well, they bring water from the mums, if they're using the water from the mums, it's a sanitizing solution.
They have sanitizer inside the porta potty also.
And outside and all over.
Any other comments or questions from the commission?
I think it's a great improvement on what you've done for the building, the neighborhood. I drive by it every day. I agree with you that maybe there are some concerns there, but if you want to talk about the concerns, I mean, let's talk about the S-curve on Greenwood Acres. That's where the real danger is, I think. You know, and if we say no, I mean, you've been doing this for 20 years in that spot. There hasn't really been too many accidents that I'm aware of. So I think it's great. I think it's great that your small business is willing to invest in our community. I know this is your retirement, and I want to thank you for it, so I'm all in favor of it. And I hope that you do well enough that you'll be having indoor plumbing within a year or two.
I hope so.
I agree. I love the fact that there's, a community member selling on Sycamore Road. So,
You know, and part of that, you know, you talk about the water and the sewer. Part of that is we have to go across the road. You know, if it was possible for the sanitation district to at least get it on our side of the road, it would make it much more feasible. And, I mean, that's a big cost, crossing the road.
Yeah, I'm very sensitive to that.
And
But-
if it was on my side of the road, it would be a lot easier to say, hey, we'll hook up tomorrow.
Yeah.
But, and so that's what we're up against, and that's where we're at.
thanks.
Are there, may I ask, are there grants statewide, countywide, citywide for things like that?
No, those would have to be directed around a public use. Now, could we go to the IPA and get a grant to run a sanitary sewer right up the middle of the entirety of Greenwood Acres Drive? Yes, because then they know it's a public common use. But they will not give those grants, at least not the stuff that comes like through my office, the public side. They say, well, this just improves one person because it's essentially a giveaway then, you know. So,
Yeah, that's a good thought.
I
no.
mean, is that something a little long-term that might be a consideration?
Do I think what should be done as an engineer? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a different political question.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. That'd be over $500,000 to run that sanitary sewer line from the bank through the entirety of the curve up around. Yeah.
There could be small business, especially ag, you know, being that you're an ag
Yeah.
business, there could be small business grants out there. I don't know.
Just when, you know, we consider, as you're looking at resourcing.
The city has an AIP, architectural improvement program, for areas outside the TIF now for improvements to the facade, the site itself, and we grant, every few council meetings, we grant one and have some, most have been downtown or restricted to the TIF area downtown. We have some funds now that are outside the TIF for improvements to buildings and other type of improvements, so.
Great
Nothing here
suggestions.
to, extend a sanitary sewer or anything, but other improvements to help to look at the buildings, things like that.
Okay. If there are any other comments or questions, I will ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make it. Based on the submitted petitions and testimony presented, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward its findings of fact. I recommend to the City Council approval of the rezoning upon annexation from SFR 1 Single Family Residential District to PDC Planned Development Commercial District for the property located at 2023 Sycamore Road for the concept plan listed in Exhibit A and subject to the plan development standards listed in Exhibit B.
So moved by Becker. May I have a second?
A second.
Seconded by McMahon. May I have a roll call, please?
Becker,
Yes.
O'Flaherty,
Yes.
Pena Graham,
Yes.
Stoker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
McMahon,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. Do we have a staff report?
For
For the meeting.
next one?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, let me get that up.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, there is a second one.
Yeah.
Each one.
Did I jump
This
the
is
gun?
not to.
I apologize. We have a second.
We're taking a public
We have
hearing.
a second public hearing.
Thank you, Planning
I can hear my mom calling.
Staff.
We have a second public hearing, a petition by the City of DeKalb amending the Unified Development Ordinance pertaining to electronic changeable copy signs and wall signs. Staff report, please. I'm so engrossed.
So this is a text amendment to, regarding signs, two areas of the Unified Development Ordinance. The first one is related to electronic changeable copy signs or digital display signs in the central business district. Both of these were kind of generated on an actual user requesting either sign permit or had questions about a sign. So, but they are text amendments, so they apply beyond particular properties. But we had Foursquare Church, which is on 210 Grove Street. Apply for a permit. They wanted to replace their existing ground sign, as you can see there, with a digital display sign. It's 24 square feet. Half of that would be the digital display part that would be changing. But our UDO in the Central Business District prohibits digital display signs. So that is not a permitted sign. So talking to the pastor who's here in the back, that we would look at doing a text amendment, present that to the commission to perhaps allow those in the CBD in certain conditions. What we came up with would be to allow it, regular ground signs are max size 50 square feet in the commercial areas, and half of that can be digital display. So we thought half of that, 25 square feet in the CBD would make sense, a little smaller sign, and half of that still could be digital display. And I include in the packets the CBD district. Here's an aerial. The dark red is the Central Business District. This is East Lincoln Highway here. This is 1st Street, 4th Street. As you can see, the Central Business District does go beyond Lincoln Highway, 1 or 2 blocks, either direction, north and south. So we do have lots, like the church, that has some open space, ground space, where a digital display sign could be erected. So the only condition that we're suggesting is that there be no digital display signs along East Lincoln Highway. And of course, between 1st and 4th, it's impossible because all the buildings are up next to the road. But the CBD does stretch for the most part to about 7th Street. So there'd be a few properties that, you know, anything along East Lincoln Highway, we still would not allow. They currently can't have digital display, so we continue that there. But any other CB district off Lincoln Highway, if they met the size requirements, could get a digital display sign on the part of the sign. So we thought that was a reasonable restriction to make them allow them, but have them smaller and not on East Lincoln Highway, which is, of course, the main road through town with the most traffic. So that's the proposed amendment there. You have the changes in your marked up copy allowing that. The second text amendment relates to wall signs. Again, related to an actual request. It came from Kraft Heinz. They were looking to do, I don't think I have this in your packet, looking to do a wall sign on north and east and west elevations. Of course, it's under construction now. If you recall, they had about a third of the building had a very high ceiling based on their operations inside. And I think this might be a sign that met the requirements. I'm not sure, but they wanted something a little bit larger. So industrial, we allow 1.5 times the frontage of your building. Take that, and that's the max square footage. But we had in the ordinance, we do have right now, a max size of 300 square feet for a wall sign. So their sign, I think was about 975 square feet, which just a little bit over 1.5 times the frontage. So not, but they felt that would be adequate size based on the mass, large mass of the building. So what we're proposing is to remove the 300-foot max, and then any buildings over 500 square feet located between Fairview Drive Gurla Road in the city, so it's basically along the I-88 corridor. Your wall sign, you can go up 2 times the frontage. Now, 2 times the frontage is not foreign to the UDO, we do allow that calculation in the Central Business District and also at Northern Plaza for the strip building that's way in the back to have a little larger sign so it can be seen easier. So, did take a Google Street View of the Ferrera as a sign distribution, under distribution center. It's just under 300 square feet, but it's not the biggest sign as Google Street View. You can barely see it there. I mean, it's what they wanted. But as you can see, there's, a little bit larger sign certainly would be no big deal aesthetically. So this was the elevations of the Kraft Heinz building. So we'd recommend approval. I think 2 times the frontage is adequate, in particular for buildings over 500 square feet, which we don't have too many.
500,000?
500,000, what did I say, 500?
Yeah.
500,000 square feet.
My family.
They're
Well,
like
500,000
really big
square
numbers
feet.
then.
So Ferrera, Kraft Heinz, what else may go up there? So not too many, it's not for every building. This is the large ones have a big, large mass at 300 square feet, very hard to read when you get that much of buildings. So those are the 2 changes related to that. Took a good look through it, did some research on these, and we recommend approval per the sample motion in the Exhibit A attached.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak to it? If not, I will open it up to the commission for questions and comments.
Makes sense.
Yeah. In the digital signage, especially by making them smaller and just off ground, the flexibility and the cleanliness versus those god-awful letter signs that people used to have to use, and especially for churches, that you put up a beautiful sign, worship with us on Sunday, and some church, they're missing half the letters, the wind blows them off, and or the kids come up and make, their things with it. I think the digital.
I had a high school job that I had to change. It was movable type sign. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It was always windy.
We've had a handful of them, at Bones in a church a few years ago when we used to require a special use, but they became so common, more affordable, I think, and more requests for them, and we are permitted with certain restrictions, so.
Yeah, it's, beautiful for the ability just to put a dynamic statement out at times, whether it's a church or, the meat. I can never remember the name, and I go by them. The Bowden. I go there all the time, but there, it just makes sense. I like it.
And
Well,
they
it's-
just
I mean-
wanna, do the same square footage as a current sign.
No, I like the fact that, companies that we've invited and have joined us are being able to broadcast that, so I think that's good hospitality. Okay. I didn't see a sample motion in here.
I got it, it's here.
Okay.
Based on the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance regarding electronic changeable copy ground signs and wall signs indicated in Exhibit A attached to the staff report.
So moved by Stoker, may I have a second?
I second.
Seconded by O'Flaherty. Roll call, please.
Becker?
Yes.
O'Flaherty?
Yes.
Pena Graham?
Yes.
Stoker?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Maxwell?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you very much. Now that long-awaited staff report. Just a good way to get to it.
Next meeting, November 6th, back at the library. We have one variance request that will be on. You should be getting a notice in the next few days email. It's for a fence at 1015 Franklin Street for fencing going to part of the front yard. We got a few other pending. I don't know if I'll get on that meeting. If not, we'll be in the second one in November. So at the last council meeting, they approved a few items that went through the commission. The school at 1240 Normal Elementary School was granted special use permit, and they were have the engineering plans. Zach's gone, but they did submit more detailed plans in, which were reviewed by the city. And also approve the text amendment to the autos, for the auto sales deed and central business district, and also the follow-up special use permit for the classic car dealer. With unanimous approval by the council. Very excited about it, so. That's all.
All right. If nothing else, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Wright. Seconded.
I second.
Seconded by Pena Graham. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.